It is 9:57 a.m. Pacific Daylight Time. It is the 23rd day of April 2025. This is episode 1080 of Bitcoin, and I got quite a bit to cover. There is quite a bit of news out there today, and for me personally, yesterday was quite the busy day. I had a couple of really cool things happen to me in this space, and I'm going to talk a little bit about that later. But if you're wondering why you're here listening to the Bitcoin and podcast, is because I'm going to bring you the daily Bitcoin news. That's what we do here most of the time. There are other times that I do have interviews and I talk about other things on this podcast, but mostly it all relates back to Bitcoin. That's the whole point of Bitcoin and its news. It's things that are ancillary to Bitcoin. And if you want to know some of the where edges collide from two different systems, this is the place to be. And we're going to start this one out with, BTC had a little bit of a pump over the night. And, this is from CoinDesk, written by James Van Straten. Headline is, Bitcoin has become the fifth largest global asset as it surpasses Google's market cap. And of course, Google is now, Alphabet, but hey, it's okay. I'll let that one go. But Bitcoin has become the fifth largest asset by market capitalization, reaching $1.86 trillion and surpassing Google as it breaks through the $94,000 barrier. This marks the highest position Bitcoin has ever attained in the rankings, even though its market cap previously exceeded $2 trillion when its price was over $109,000. At that time, however, tech stocks were significantly more elevated than they are at the moment. Bitcoin has just broken above $94,000, turning positive for the year, and renewed optimism is emerging amid easing tensions in the United States-China tariff trade war, which has fueled gains for both Bitcoin and tech stocks, with NASDAQ futures rising, 2%. Technically, Bitcoin has now moved above key resistance levels that were noted on Tuesday. Additionally, it has set a new record relative to the NASDAQ, indicating a breakout not only against major tech indices, but also across a range of key asset classes. Okay, so yes, we've gone above Google's market cap. Hooray! And what happened right after that? We started coming down in the markets. The price started to drop. When I'm trying to think, let's see, where are we at right now? Because we're not at 94,000 or above. In fact, we're chilling out at 93,631. So we peaked at about 1 o'clock this morning, my time, Pacific Daylight Time. We had a high of 94,510. And then we ended up with a low about 4 hours later of 91,970. So we saw quite the dip. And we are recovering back to 93,696. Why do I care? Because some other news hit. I don't think it was surpassing Google's market cap that caused a slight sell-off. No. It's what's going on this morning. Jack Mallers has been named the Chief Executive Officer of new Bitcoin powerhouse 21 Capital, with plans to launch with 42,000 Bitcoin. This is kind of a big deal. This is written by Nick from Bitcoin Magazine. Just listen up, because I got two stories essentially on the same thing, right? So first is that Jack Mallers, our boy from Strike, the wonder kid, and he is a wonder kid, man. I mean, it's like he's really young, but dude, the guy he's just been on fire ever since he was, I can't remember, I think his first company was called Zap, and it turned into what we now know as Strike. And I remember when it was just a ragtag team of him and like two other people that was trying to figure out ways to leverage the Lightning Network. And I was in Durango, Colorado, walking through the Walmart there one summer when I was listening to a podcast when Jack Mallers was on this podcast talking about Zap and what was going on with Zap. And that was years ago at this point, man. And now, well, Jack Mallers, co-founder and CEO of Strike, has been named the co-founder and CEO of 21 Capital Incorporated, a new Bitcoin native firm preparing to go public via a SPAC merger with Cantor Equity Partners. The company plans to trade under the ticker XXI and will launch with an initial treasury of more than 42,000 Bitcoin, making it the third largest corporate Bitcoin holder in the world. Ladies and gentlemen, they're going to be the third largest Bitcoin holder in the world right out of the gate. Right out of the gate. This has been backed. Now, this is where it starts to get really interesting. It's not just another Bitcoin-backed Treasury Reserve company. Check this part out. This entire endeavor is backed by Tether, and SoftBank. Do you know what SoftBank is? Well, 21 enters the market with a clear mission: to maximize Bitcoin ownership per share and offer investors direct exposure to Bitcoin via a public company structure. And last night, the Financial Times reported that the consortium is creating a multi-billion-dollar Bitcoin acquisition vehicle that will absorb billions in cryptocurrency from the other partners and use the funds in an attempt to replicate the success of MicroStrategy, which is now known as Strategy. Quote, "Markets need reliable money to measure value and allocate capital efficiently," said Jack Mallers. And quote, "We believe that Bitcoin is the answer, and 21 is how we bring that answer to public markets. Our mission is simple: to become the most successful Bitcoin company, the most valuable financial opportunity of our time. We're not here to beat the market. We're here to build a new one, a public stock built by Bitcoiners for Bitcoiners," end quote. 21 will debut with $585 million in capital raised through PIPE financing and convertible notes, with funds earmarked for additional Bitcoin purchases and general operations. Tether, a co-founder of the venture, has committed to acquiring Bitcoin equivalent to the full PIPE raise ahead of closing. And PIPE, I guess, is an acronym, and I don't know what it means, but it's PIPE. If you know what that means, give me a boostagram and tell me what it is that I'm missing there, but it doesn't really matter because, quote, "Bitcoin is one of the only truly decentralized, immutable, and censorship-resistant assets, and its role as the foundation of a new financial system is inevitable," said Paolo Ardoino, CEO of Tether. Quote, "With Jack at the helm, we are proud to support this effort to further Bitcoin's adoption and reinforce its role as the ultimate store of value. At Tether, we have always believed in supporting initiatives that strengthen Bitcoin's dominance and real-world utility. 21 will take a Bitcoin-first approach that aligns with our vision, prioritizing accumulation over speculation, and build long-term value for those who understand what Bitcoin represents," end quote. With its dual focus on financial products and Bitcoin-centered media, 21 aims to evolve the MicroStrategy, which is now Strategy, model into a broader platform for Bitcoin native innovation, offering new capital market instruments, lending models, and pro-Bitcoin content for public shareholders. Right, so there's not a whole... I wish this particular story had been a little bit more descriptive about what's going on. But the key points here is that you got Jack Mallers from Strike being named the CEO of a company that is going to launch with more than 42,000 Bitcoin on day one, and it's being backed by Tether and SoftBank. But there was another name that was in here. Do you remember what it was? Cantor Equity Partners. That's where this other article from Bitcoin Magazine written by Nick Ward comes in. And maybe this will be a little bit more descriptive of what the hell is going on. SoftBank, Tether, and Cantor Fitzgerald are in talks for $3 billion Bitcoin treasury vehicle. SoftBank, one of Japan's most powerful corporate institutions, is reportedly in talks with Tether and Cantor Fitzgerald to launch a $3 billion Bitcoin treasury vehicle slated for public listing. According to Bloomberg, the structure is expected to be capitalized in Bitcoin, not fiat, with SoftBank contributing $900 million, Tether $1.5 billion, and here comes Bitfinex with $600 million. If finalized, which it looks like it has been, the entity would launch with approximately 32,000 BTC. See, that's a different number. This article was actually written first, and then the Jack Mallers news dropped. This is all happening at lightning speed, ladies and gentlemen. It instantly is ranking among the top 5 Bitcoin holding public companies globally. It would also mark a significant expansion of a corporate strategy that's already redefining capital formation, the Bitcoin treasury model. The idea of holding Bitcoin on the balance sheet has moved beyond fringe theory. For a growing number of public companies, Bitcoin is becoming a foundational capital asset, one that enables not only preservation of purchasing power, but accelerated access to new forms of capital. This shift is clearest in the case of Strategy, the company that pioneered the modern Bitcoin treasury strategy. As CEO Phong Le explained during his MIT Bitcoin Expo keynote, quote, "We outperformed the entire NASDAQ, the entire S&P 500, the entire Mag 7, and we outperformed Bitcoin itself," end quote. Strategy's results were not driven by speculative timing. They were powered by structure. The company reimagined its balance sheet as a capital engine, raising funds, deploying into Bitcoin, and making its holdings fully transparent in near real time. Lee argued that many companies underperform not due to execution failure, but because they remain trapped in outdated financial models, models that favor fiat, prioritize defensive posturing, and ignore the velocity advantages of digital capital. While SoftBank's potential move is commanding attention, Japan already has a benchmark in place because in 2024, Metaplanet Incorporated delivered one of the most remarkable corporate transformations in global markets. Once a struggling, if not failing, hotel operator, the company pivoted into a Bitcoin treasury strategy and became the best performing stock in the world. In the world, yes, the best performing stock in the world with a 100x market cap increase. Metaplanet didn't just accumulate Bitcoin. It rebuilt its capital structure around it, using Bitcoin to drive debt issuance, equity raises, and treasury allocation. Its performance began tracking not on earnings per share, but on BTC yield. That's the percentage growth in Bitcoin holdings relative to fully diluted shares. And by Q1 2025, Metaplanet had achieved a BTC yield of 15.3% with a target of 35% per quarter. The market responded by repricing the company around its Bitcoin per share performance. Metaplanet proved that the Bitcoin treasury model works in Japan and that it can scale. Its success opened the door for larger firms to step in and expand the strategy further. What SoftBank brings to this evolving corporate category isn't novelty, it's sheer magnitude. With $32.9 billion in cash and nearly $200 billion in net asset value, a 900 million Bitcoin allocation or $900 million Bitcoin allocation represents merely a 2.7% of the reserves. But structured through a public company seated in Bitcoin, it becomes a very high visibility signal to the rest of the global market. The proposed joint venture, unlike an ETF or a synthetic fund, is a Bitcoin native operating company designed for public equity markets. It enables investors to gain Bitcoin exposure through a traditional channel while creating new opportunities for capital formation through BTC-backed financial instruments. This structure would also fill a critical gap in Japan where no spot Bitcoin ETF currently exists. It would become the country's first, most accessible, liquid, and institutionally credible vehicle for Bitcoin exposure. SoftBank would not be entering uncharted territory. It would be scaling a proven, institutionalized model, bringing broader market access and deeper liquidity to a capital strategy already reshaping corporate finance. If completed, SoftBank's move would be among the largest Bitcoin treasury deployments in corporate history and the most significant to date in Asia. It signals that Bitcoin is no longer an experimental reserve. It's programmable capital. It allows companies to transform idle balance sheet assets into productive, strategic capital platforms. The corporate Bitcoin treasury era is well underway. SoftBank has the balance sheet, the reputation, and the infrastructure to take it even further, scaling a model that's already shaping capital markets from the inside out. Okay, so that's the end of those two articles, but I'm not quite finished yet. Jack Mallers made a post on Nostr last night or very early this morning and says, and this is talking about Strike, right? So this is, while he's writing this Cantor Fitzgerald, SoftBank, Bitfinex, and who else? Oh my God, who else was it? Hold on, I got it right here. 21 Capital, involving major players like SoftBank, Tether, Bitfinex, and Cantor Fitzgerald. Those are the four of the largest things that you can have going for you. Two of them are two of the largest players in Bitcoin itself. Cantor Fitzgerald and SoftBank are two of the largest just legacy financial capital market makers that there is. And they're all coming together for a nice little dinner party. Well, while that shit's going on, I got Jack Mallers last night saying Strike is already issuing millions of dollars worth of Bitcoin-backed loans every day, and I haven't even officially launched the product. So while we just got finished talking about his appointment as CEO to 21, which is backed by the people I told you it was backed by, Strike is about to launch. I guess they're going to announce today because, it was sort of an announcement, but he's saying millions of dollars worth of Bitcoin-backed loans every single day, and they haven't even officially launched the product. I think we're entering into what's called a sea change. I'm not saying number go up. I'm not saying fiat's going to die. It's not anytime soon anyway. But if you have ever been on a cruise and you've done a sea change, then you know what I'm talking about. Now, I haven't personally done a sea change. I have been on a cruise, and the reason I know about this shit is because I have a tendency to talk to the help. I like talking to the waitresses and the bartenders, and I get more information like actually talking to these people than anybody else. And one of my bartenders was talking about sea change, and it's like when they essentially, like a ship, like, I don't know, Princess Cruise Lines or something like that, they go from doing like the Alaska, like they go from Seattle to the Alaska run. That's a really popular cruise. But then they will trans-navigate over to Australia and do like whatever cruise they got going over there. Well, when they do shit like that, when they're on the Pacific side, or if you're on the Atlantic side and you're doing like Florida cruises or whatever, and then you actually have to navigate over to the Pacific Ocean, that's a sea change, right? And apparently it's really interesting. He tried to describe it, but he's like, you can just kind of tell, even though you're surrounded by water, there's just something that tells you in your bones that you're about to cross into a completely different ocean. And that's where we're at right now. That's where we're at right now today. And you can hate Jack Mallers and Strike. You can hate strategy and Misty and MSTR. You can hate all that all you want. But they are going to continue to buy Bitcoin. So what should you do in these trying times? You buy Bitcoin and you hold Bitcoin. It's not that hard. Now, my good buddy Leathermint, he's in the Circle P. He's the featured vendor for the Circle P today. If you need a belt, if you need a wallet, if you need something made out of the highest quality leather that's going to probably last you a lifetime, Leathermint is your guy. And you can go to theleathermint.com. That is theleathermint.com. And you can peruse the shop. You can look at his beautiful belts. You can look at his hand-stitched leather goods, his leather wallets. And if you just look at the stitching, and that's where it's not just about the quality of the leather. It's about how these pieces of leather are held together in order to make a functional wallet, a functional bracelet, a functional belt. It's all about the stitching. And if you just take one look, a good look at the stitching of these high quality leather products, you'll know exactly what the hell I'm talking about. And I got a coupon code for you. My good buddy Leathermint is also using coupon code Bitcoin and for 10% off of your purchases. And when you let him know that you actually, bought one of his goods because you heard it here on the Circle P, that's how he knows. You put in Bitcoin and into the coupon code, and that way Leathermint understands that I'm the one that made the sale for him, and me and Leathermint's got a deal worked out where he pays me what he thinks that sale was worth to him in the form of Bitcoin, which he sends me directly. There is no middleman. There's no conversion to fiat currency. It goes directly to my Lightning node. That's how I get paid, right? And I understand that people sometimes don't like commercials. However, what if you want a wallet? What if you want to buy it in Bitcoin? Because if you're not selling it in Bitcoin, you're not in the Circle P. And that is a parameter. You have to sell. You have to at least have that offer. Like, yes, I will take fiat, but I also will let you buy this stuff in Bitcoin. Because that is a stipulation. Nobody gets into the Circle P if they're only doing fiat. I want plebs to do well. I want the people that love making leather goods to actually be able to do that for their life. I want people like Soap Miner that makes soap to be able to do that and make a living at it, a good living. And, nobody has advertising budgets. Money's tight everywhere because everything is just freaking out, right? So it's up to us to support each other. And that's why I came up with the Circle P. It is plebs like you with goods and services selling to plebs just like you who might want to actually purchase those goods and services. And I do not put crap in the Circle P. Every single vendor I have makes their stuff by hand, sells it for Bitcoin, and is proud of their product. Go to theleathermint.com. Just look to see if there's something that you want. I highly recommend a wallet because wallets are very, very useful appliances, and he's got some really neat wallets. Just go look, and you'll understand just how neat they are. They actually have some special features. But moving on to Jay Clayton, who is now taking the helm at the Southern District of New York, returning to government with crypto record in tow, according to Vince D'Aquino from Decrypt. Former SEC chairman Jay Clayton, Jay Clayton was the chairman of the SEC. He officially assumed his role Tuesday as U.S. Attorney for the Southern District of New York 1 week after being appointed interim attorney by President Trump. And Clayton now leads one of the most influential prosecutorial offices in the U.S., known for its jurisdiction over Wall Street and a history of high-profile financial crime cases. Pausing to say, indeed. Most of the time when you hear about somebody being charged in Bitcoin, a lot of the time it's coming out of the Southern District of New York. And now that doesn't look like it's going to be happening very much anymore because the Southern District has long played a central role in enforcing corporate accountability and shaping financial regulation. They've always been up the wazoo of Bitcoin companies. And they were right alongside the state of New York when they decided to make it just damn near impossible to have a Bitcoin company there with what's called the bit license. And if you run afoul at any time, if you're anywhere close to capital markets, SDNY's got your ass. And now Jay Clayton is at the helm. In a statement released by the U.S. Attorney's Office, Clayton said that he would prioritize, quote, protecting public safety, combating fraud, particularly on the elderly and more vulnerable, and ensure the integrity of our financial system as I defend our national security. Okay, well, a little hubris there, but Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer previously blocked the formal nomination process for several of President Trump's U.S. attorney picks by refusing to return the requisite blue slips. As a result, Clayton will serve in his new role on an interim basis for up to 120 days. His continuation beyond that period would require confirmation by the Senate or appointment by district court judges in Manhattan. While Clayton's mandate will be much broader than his previous role at the SEC, during his time at the regulatory agency, he played a significant role in policing the 2016 initial coin offering boom. He brought 57 cases against crypto firms, ICOs, and other blockchain-based projects during his tenure from 2017 to 2020. Clayton also stopped 18 suspected fraud operations involving blockchain and digital assets, a summary published by the SEC shows. While the general number of his enforcement actions on crypto is lower than SEC Chairman Gary Gensler's count, 70 versus 125 initiated, more of these were approved by unanimous votes, according to data compiled by Cornerstone Research. Clayton's relationship with the crypto industry has been complex as well as controversial. Clayton's appointment to SDNY comes shortly after the SEC dropped its appeal in the landmark Ripple case that he initiated during his final days as SEC chair in December of 2020. The SEC and Ripple said earlier this month they have been working toward a negotiated resolution. After resigning from the SEC, he pivoted to advisory roles at crypto firms One River and Fireblocks, later guiding the former to list a Bitcoin ETF, despite previously hinting the Bitcoin market was open to manipulation. Now in office, Clayton says that he's honored to serve alongside an institution synonymous with excellence and integrity. Indeed, his achievements reveal a storied career. Clayton was nominated by President Trump in 2017 to lead the SEC and was confirmed by May of the very same year with bipartisan support. Prior to his leadership at the SEC, Clayton defended several of Wall Street's top firms during his time at Sullivan and Cromwell. We'll have to see what he does, but he's part of the Trump administration again, and now the Trump administration is all in love with Bitcoin. So we will just have to see whether or not Jay Clayton decides to stoke the fire some more or decides to, take it easy. Let's run the numbers. Futures and commodities. Oil just can't figure its own ass out right now. West Texas Intermediate is down 2 2/3 of a point, back down to $61.96 a barrel. Brent North Sea is down 2.5% to $65.80. Natural gas is swinging the other way, though. It's up a point to $3.03 per thousand cubic feet, while gasoline is down 1.19% to $2.07 a gallon. Gold taking it on the chin this morning, 3.5 points to the downside. Whoa, holy moly. That would be a $3,299.10. Silver is up 2 points. Platinum is up 1.7%. Copper is down 3/4 of a point. Palladium is up 3/4 of a point. In ag, what do we got going on here? Pretty much mixed today, but the biggest winner is coffee. Yeah, coffee, 3.5% to the upside. Biggest loser today is chocolate. No, it's not. Yeah, it is chocolate. 2.25 to the downside. And it was running up there pretty good there for a little while. Live cattle is up 0.75 of a point. Lean hogs moving sideways. Feeder cattle are up 1/3 of a point. And all the legacy equity markets are really happy today. 1.74% to the upside puts the Dow back at 40,033. So no more 39, at least for, at least right now. And then let's see what else we got going on. S&P futures, the S&P itself is up 2.31%. NASDAQ is up 3 full points, ladies and gentlemen. And the S&P mini is up 2.25. And why, you may ask? Well, I'll tell you why. Because Trump is softening his language on his trade war with China specifically. And of course, he's going to be lambasted for, he was really weak, man. I don't know. I think all this is just part of the fact that he wrote the book, Art of the Deal. And there's one other thing about Art of the Deal that I haven't really discussed, and it's like being very loud and boisterous, announcing your presence, announcing your intent to do a deal, right? Maybe that was part of the strong stance, was to get China's attention. This entire thing was not about Thailand tariffing us. It was not about Australia. It probably was not at all about Canada and Mexico and all the rest. This was all about China. And he burnt the market to the ground to make a point. It's like the meme with the Joker burning a pile of cash. He's like, it's not about the money. It's about sending a message. I kind of think that that's what this was. Is he was like, Xi, me and you are going to sit down in a room and we're going to hammer some shit out. And as long as they come up with some kind of deal, it doesn't even have to be everything that Trump wants. As long as they get something hammered out and it's a deal that they both sign and they can show the world we've done a deal, then a lot of what people are calling chaos in the markets will start to ease up a little bit. However, I still believe there's going to be big shifts in capital allocation. I still think housing is a bubble that is about to pop, and it's going to be pretty ugly again. I think people are going to be moving into gold and Bitcoin. I think that a lot of these companies that are zombie companies are going to start fighting to get a Bitcoin treasury so that they can turn themselves around. And like Saylor says, instead of just having a balance sheet that does nothing, you've got to turn it into a capital generation engine. I do not disagree with that. There's no reason why you shouldn't enslave your money. Hell, there's a book called The Richest Man in Babylon, and it's quite literally one of my favorite books to listen to while I'm on a walk or washing dishes or whatever, right? Because yes, I don't have a dishwasher. The place that we're at right now it doesn't have a dishwasher, and I've been washing dishes for a long time now, like every day. It's a pain in the ass, but it does give me a lot of time to listen to podcasts, especially this particular audio book called The Richest Man in Babylon. And one of the things that they talk about is, what's your perception of money? What do you think it should do? And they don't go through that it's fungible, that it's recognizable. They don't go through any of that. That is an assumption that they just hold at the very first of the book. They're just like going, we're going to talk about money and how it works for you. And through a series of really interesting stories set in ancient Babylon, it's very well done. It keeps your interest because it's not talking about economy in today's times. It's literally talking about, what do you do with money? And when Saylor said, and like I said, I know people hate Saylor, and I know people think he's going to be pulling a big giant rug pull, but I really cannot stop thinking about what he said. You have to stop looking at your company's balance sheet as defensive, as a store of value, as something that you just sit on like a red dragon. No. You have to turn it into your slave. You have to force it to work for you, and that work is to make more money. And they talk about that in this book, The Richest Man in Babylon. If you have cash, then you need to be having that cash enslaved to make little baby caches. And then once those little baby caches get strong enough and grow up just enough, you turn that son of a bitch into slaves too. And you just keep enslaving your money. And I know I'm using a terrible word because it's always associated with human slavery. If you have the notion to enslave something, don't enslave people. Enslave money. Now, let's get onto the dashboard where it looks like, we're holding at $93,670 per Bitcoin. That is a $1.86 trillion market cap, and we can now purchase 28.1 ounces of shiny metal rocks with our one Bitcoin, of which there are 19,854,985 and a quarter of, and average fees per block are relatively high at 0.06 BTC per block. Now, there's a lot of blocks. Well, there's a lot of blocks in comparison to what we've been seeing. 27 blocks carrying 62,000 unconfirmed transactions waiting to clear at, holy moly, high priority rates are 21 Satoshis per VByte. Not 2.1, 21 Satoshis per VByte. I haven't seen prices this high since I watched a movie called Used Cars back in the 70s. Low priority going to get you in at 17. And if you have not watched Used Cars, you are missing out. Freaking thing is hilarious, dude. All right, mining. What's the miners doing? Dropping hash rate again. 837.3 exahashes per second. Quite low in comparison to where we were at the peak of somewhere around 940, somewhere around there. Yeah, 940 or 930 exahashes per second was like an all-time high. So yes, we are quite down from that, but 837.3 exahashes per second, in my opinion, ladies and gentlemen, does not equal capitulation. Now, I have a website for the Bitcoin and podcast. It is bitcoinandshow.com. I post every show to bitcoinandshow.com. I've also published a couple of articles there. I'm just using a relative template, and I'm using Ghost as my host because they are, in fact, I don't think they take Bitcoin for their goods and services, but they are Bitcoin adjacent insofar that it was through several Bitcoin podcasts that I came to know about Ghost as a web host. And that's who I'm using. So the website's powered by Ghost. I'm using a simple template. If you're looking for gears and lights and whistles and bells, it's not there yet. I'm just getting my feet wet on how all this stuff works. But, please go visit bitcoinandshow.com and sign up. Just give me your email. Yes, I know. You're going to go, I don't want to give you my email. I'm not going to give your email away. I'm not going to sell your email to somebody else. Why would I? I'm not going to allow somebody else to compete with my same customers. That's ridiculous. I will never, ever, ever release your emails either for free or for pay. Those are my emails. Those are mine. I worked for them. I want them. I'm not going to just give them or sell them to somebody else. Bitcoinandshow.com. Go to bitcoinandshow.com so that you can see posts like Breaking Europe, which was yesterday's episode of Bitcoin. And I got the general with 1,291 sats says boost. I got deleted account with 1,020. Oh, it's the same thing. 1,291 sats says boost. That was the general. But somehow or another, he's come up twice. And one was called the general and the other one is deleted account. Sometimes Fountain just kind of is. Ever since they integrated Nostr as their social media layer, things are a little dicey. It still works, but you got to watch out. TKCTV 80 HPW with 1,000 says, Forson, best made up word ever. Bravo D. It's foreseen. No, Forson. It's Forson, brother. I am taking it back, man. Axelrod 1021 says, I use Obsidian now on your advice. Not free, but cheaper than Evernote, and I like it. Learning as I go, but I heard you searched all your transcripts from your show. Could I search your archive? How could I link my Obsidian app with what I'm using? Thanks. I don't know. Axelrod, Double Odd, I don't know. One of the things that I'm really excited about is a project in Nostr called Project Alexandria. Project Alexandria. Go search it on Nostr. Just type in Project Alexandria, and you will find people like Liminal. Liminal is one of the guys working on it. I can't remember her name. She's part of the crew. She's a German woman. There's Liminal and there's, I want to say Lysandra, but that's not it. Go look at what they're doing. And I had Liminal on the podcast to talk about what we think this is. One of the things that Project Alexandria is doing can kind of solve the question you just asked. Now, here's the other thing. I'm not going to let somebody in my archive because I don't have confidence that archive wouldn't get screwed up, right? And secondly, I'm not sure if that's possible. But one thing that we could probably do, or one thing, Axelrod, you could probably do, is search Obsidian and shared archive or shared vault, because they're not called archives, they're called vaults. You want to search Obsidian shared vault. They may have a mechanism to do that, but I still wouldn't open mine. Up. If I do open it up, it's going to be somehow through Project Alexandria. Again, if you're not watching Project Alexandria in the Nostr space and what it means to things like notes in Obsidian, you're missing out. You got to go check it out. Psyduck with 588 says, Psyduck. Yodel 501 says 44 trillion and a bunch of laughing faces. Clear with 500 says there's no point yelling. Get it? Wartime 333 says cheers. Pies with 100 says thank you, sir. No thank you. That's the weather report. Welcome to part 2 of the news you can use. We've got to embed Bitcoin into everything, everywhere. According to Shinobi, he's written this piece for Bitcoin Magazine. Last week, Breeze Tech announced WebAssembly support for their nodeless Breeze SDK. They had to rework a number of pieces of the SDK to make Bitcoin and Lightning work in the browser, implementing new ways to grab blockchain data, handle databases in memory, handle DNS resolution, interact with file systems across different platforms, etc., etc., etc. Now, a Lightning-enabled wallet or application can run entirely in browser. I'm sure plenty of you are immediately cringing and thinking about security concerns. And I would be the first to say that storing any material amount of or significant percentage of your wealth in such a way is insane. But some portion of everyone's stack needs to actually be usable. Bitcoin's future as a real monetary network is not one with a million different apps and devices fumbling around to find the right one depending on what you are trying to do or what kind of transaction you are trying to make. There's room for what you are saying and what you are spending, but much more complexity in terms of interoperability is too far for your average person. Saving can afford some complexity and friction, but when it comes to actually using Bitcoin, it needs to be seamless and embedded everywhere. If Bitcoin is going to be the future of money, then it needs to actually be intuitive. It needs to be flexible. It needs to feel like the future. People seek out convenience in all things, and money is no different. We cannot expect your average person to spend 20 hours researching different devices, testing different applications and wallets, and then eventually scattering their funds across half a dozen apps and pieces of hardware. People need to be able to open any device, open any app, and be able to access whatever Bitcoin they have available for spending. That won't happen magically by itself. That requires work. That requires collaboration on standards. That requires doing the engineering work that doesn't make for attention-grabbing headlines. Breeze has been absolutely killing it in terms of doing this kind of work. Other examples are BDK and LDK from Spiral, libraries for building apps or integrating Bitcoin and Lightning into existing apps. Nostr Wallet Connect is another example of standards for interoperability. The PSBT standard in BIP 174 by Ava Chow is another. We need this energy and direction to be amplified heavily. Bitcoin will not succeed in its goal of adoption if people are confronted with a fragmented landscape of different walled gardens or inconvenient ways of using different tools together fraught with friction. Bitcoin needs to be everywhere, seamlessly, embedded into everything. Okay, so that's Shinobi's take on embedding Bitcoin into everything. Embed is a good word here. And if you are not familiar with what he actually means, and I'm going to make a huge assumption, which could make an ass out of you and me, but I'm going to suggest that when he uses the word embed, he wants code that I can like drop into my website, like on bitcoinandshow.com. That's bitcoinandshow.com. What if you went to bitcoinandshow.com and the first page it had was like the ability for you to interact with my website and be able to tip me directly by Lightning with a module that I just threw into the header of, or it's somewhere in the body of the first page that you see at bitcoinandshow.com. And it allowed you to, I don't know, tip me. Or maybe I embedded into the Circle P page. And somehow or another, I become so good at web stuff, and I'm never going to be able to do this myself. I'll have to ask for help. But to have like vendors, all the vendors of the Circle P represented like as a storefront, and you click on a vendor, and when you go to that page, there's an embedded Lightning wallet that you can just use that somehow or another accesses whatever funds you have on your computer, like a pipeline that goes from my website to whatever it is that you're interacting with. And in this case, he's saying that like the Breeze SDK stuff is getting pretty solid. Wouldn't that be interesting? If you didn't have, he only uses like Nostr Wallet Connect. And I do. I use Nostr Wallet Connect, but I haven't embedded something as code into any pages of my website that allows you to use Bitcoin directly on my website. And it's not because I don't want to. It's because I'm not good at web stuff, man. I'm just not. But that's what he's talking about. He's talking about anybody to have any of their websites have like some kind of embedded HTML code or something like that in the body of their page that allows them to, the user of the web page, to actually interact with that web page in a functional Bitcoin savvy way. And he's absolutely correct. He's absolutely correct. We need to get past the friction. The people that are okay with friction are people like you and me. Well, with friction in Bitcoin, we want to tear things apart. We love it. We love diving into something new. You know, like when Lightning came out, we were told, oh, don't put any real funds on it because it's, you know, you could get it all stolen. It was reprehensible. What was the term that Elizabeth Stark used? We had it memed into consciousness for a long time. Reckless. Hashtag reckless. It was reckless to use Lightning. It was only experimental. And yet here we were throwing $100 worth of Bitcoin into a freaking Lightning channel to see how this shit works. We cannot at all expect your average person to want to do that, much less actually do that. Okay. So let's shift gears. Let's talk a little bit about shitcoin number one, aka Ethereum. Johan Yun from Cointelegraph tells us about the continual dumpster fire that Ethereum is. Institutions break up with Ethereum but keep ETH on the hook. Ethereum is entering one of its most precarious periods since its inception. Usage on the base layer is plummeting. Core metrics are nearing multi-year lows. And even co-founder Vitalik Buterin himself is proposing a radical architecture overhaul. I'm pausing right there. Do you know what a radical architectural overhaul means when it comes to software? Let it rattle around in your head. Is this where you want to trust your wealth? If you have friends or family that somehow or another haven't listened to you about Ethereum, try again. Get them out. Get them out. Get them out. Because institutions aren't waiting to see how this plays out. Blockchain data shows that longtime supporters such as Galaxy Digital and Paradigm have been slashing their Ether holdings in recent weeks. So far in April, Ethereum's base layer activity has continued to collapse. Ethereum's network fees are dropping, and inflation has been rising. I thought it was supposed to be ultrasound money. Though layer 2 networks continue to develop, they're cannibalizing the base layer's value capture. But the story isn't entirely about Ethereum's collapse. Some whales are treating this downturn as a rare buying opportunity. Even those who are selling Ether can't fully let go. Yeah, because they're trapped against Bitcoin. If these people are still in Ether and they know anything about what's actually going on with the Ethereum thing, the Ethereum Foundation, and Vitalik Buterin, and wanting to overhaul the entire architecture, they're trapped because they know they've lost value against Bitcoin. All you have to do is look at the Ether BTC chart, and you'll see exactly what I'm talking about. They're back to valuations against Bitcoin of 2020. That was 5 years ago, guys. That's why they're still there. And they're going to hold on to this bullshit forever. I just wanted to bring that up. There's a lot more to this article, but there's a lot of this article that is just, it's just not necessary, because they're talking about how it may not actually last, that Ethereum might actually bounce back, and that some of this stuff is good. All you need to know is that institutions are getting the hell out. Vitalik wants to completely overhaul the architecture, and it's been losing value against Bitcoins for 5 years. How much more do you need? Get your friends and family out of this crap before it kills them. And before they make a movie about it killing them, which then you might actually be able to post up on nostr.com. That's right, nostr.com, KINOSTR.com. What is it? It's movies on Nostr. And it was created by Carnage, at least as near as I can tell. Okay, it's not exactly movies on Nostr. There's pointers to where the movie actually lies, but this gives a really nice interface to play an entire movie, and you log into it with your Nostr credentials. Like I said, Nostr, I've been saying this about Nostr for a while. Nostr, and I need to pause this because I started the movie Soldier from 1998, which, if you haven't watched Soldier from 1998, one of the best movies I've ever seen. For the quality of movie that it is, for the quality of cast that it is, Kurt Russell's performance, I think he says 5 words throughout this entire movie. His entire performance in this movie is completely physical. Soldier is one of the best Kurt Russell movies I've ever seen. But getting back to Kinostr, Kinostr, websites that decide to or people that want to create something and they decide to use the nostr protocol to create whatever they want to create. Doesn't have to be social media. Social media is just the lowest hanging fruit for nostr. But anything, anytime anyone wants to actually create something for the web and they decide to use the nostr protocol, I've already got credentials for that website. I already had credentials set up for Kinostr, even though I had just heard about it this morning. And Carnage, I think, vibe coded this thing into existence over the last couple of days, and it works fine. And I'm not going to get into all the nuts and guts and feathers about it. That should be up to the guys out there that's listening to the sound of my voice. Go to Kinostr.com. Tell Carnage what you think about it. Carnage is spelled with a K. Karn, A-J-A-G-E. Carnage. Carnage on nostr. He's a little purple cat with goggles on. If you want to look, see if you're talking about the right Carnage. And let him know what you think. Ask him questions about it. How do I post? How do I post up a movie? Right? I think it has something to do with hashtag Kinostr, and then you go find a movie in some it's leveraging some database that's out there somewhere, and I don't remember the name of it right now. But somehow or another, that automatically populates Kinostr with the movie, and you're doing it from a completely different nostr client. If you're not on nostr, why? The future is here. The fact that I can post a movie to Kinostr from a completely different client with a simple hashtag is something Twitter never would be able to think about doing. Why are you still not on nostr? Is it that difficult? Is it really? Because, honey, if it's that freaking difficult for you, I got something. Where am I at? I need to go. Let's see. Create your nostr account. No, it's not start. It is now instart.me. If you just want to be held by the hand and led through the forest of woe, please, please, please go to instart.me. It's like 5 steps. It takes maybe 2 minutes to get through, and it will tell you exactly what it is that you're doing, how you're doing it, why you're doing it, and then it has the buttons that you click to do the thing. It's from an instructional standpoint, instart.me is one of the best resources out there to get somebody who's like, I don't know what an insec is, and that just sounds too complicated for me. No, it's not. And instart.me will tell you exactly how to do it. Please, please, please go to instart.me. Get on nostr. Go watch movies. Specifically, go watch Soldier. Like I said, man, Kurt Russell says like maybe 5 words in this entire movie. Other than that, he's completely silent. It's a great flick, dude. Great flick. Now, the forest is my mentor. Okay. What am I talking about? Well, I was on the Once Bitten podcast with Daniel Prince and his daughter Lauren, and we talked about Arbuscule and Michael Rise and a whole bunch of other stuff. We did touch on Bitcoin as it applies to the fact that networks are going to network, and just because one network is Bitcoin and the other one is a mycorrhizal network, they still have these similarities, and what we can learn from nature can kind of guide us as to how we interact with other networks. But this, Daniel Prince's Once Bitten podcast has been around longer than this podcast, right? He always has his daughter Lauren in the room at the first so that she can ask questions to the guest on the Once Bitten podcast. After about sometimes anywhere between 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, maybe sometimes 20 minutes, that's when she leaves. Lauren never left this podcast. She was there till the very end. And me and Daniel realized at the very end that Lauren was still there. And she had always been active during the podcast, but it was almost as if we were all like still in that first 20 minutes, even though this thing went for like, what is it? I think we went for 2 hours and 8 minutes talking about forests, talking about mushrooms, talking about Bitcoin, talking about Lightning Network, talking about biology and how markets are just like manifestations of what nature already solved. If you want to go hear me talk more about this for 2 hours and 8 minutes with Daniel Prince and his daughter Lauren, well, then go to the show notes. I've got a link directly to the podcast, Once Bitten podcast, not only to the podcast, but to this specific episode that I'm talking about, and give Daniel Prince some boost on Fountain. Go listen to it. I really enjoyed my time with Daniel. We're planning on having me back to talk about something else. I think we're going to talk about Forest Walker, Bitcoin mining and forest management. That was an article that I had written, a while back and finally published and kind of leaked it out. And, I tried to make a thing out of it where, people could see it. Somebody saw it. That somebody was Guy Swan, because his Bitcoin Audible podcast, Read 878, he does the Forest Walker. I was honored that Guy Swan picked it up, and not only did he pick it up, and not only was I honored that he read it because he thought it was good enough to put on a show, he actually went through quite a bit of critique on the system that, as I was outlining it in the article, on the back end during his Guy's take, right? He had some really good points. I've got about 1,000 problems with this system. Will it operate in deep snow? How wet can the wood actually be? So when it starts raining in the forest, how does the system shut down and have to let the forest dry out for a couple of days? There are quite a few issues with this, but Guy Swan, he understood. This is kind of like, for me, it's more than a thought experiment. I think this could be done. I think this actually should be done. But the major problem is there enough return on investment potentiality to have this kinetically built by people that would want to invest a good amount of time, effort, and money to actually build the Forest Walker for forest management? And it doesn't have to be just forest management, but still, Guy really did get it. He really did understand. We have to start, well, we don't have to. I just feel that I need to start thinking about Bitcoin differently. Where can I plug Bitcoin in that makes things that wouldn't normally work actually work? And I keep finding all kinds of ways to plug Bitcoin in. I got more articles coming out. I will start working on them, I promise. But like I said, Guy Swan, Read 878, and yes, I've got a link directly to the fountain.fm episode of that, so you can just click the link in the show notes and go right to it if you want to listen to Guy Swan, read the article, and then go through some critiques and what he kind of thinks of the system. I actually found it very valuable feedback. Thank you, Guy, for reading that on Bitcoin Audible. It's always been one of my favorite podcasts, and I was honored to be featured on your show. All right, Citizen X acquires Plan B passport to accelerate sovereign movement. I find this interesting that Plan B passport has been acquired. This is written from Bitcoin News. Citizen X, a Swiss-based technology firm, announced today the acquisition of Plan B Passport, a trailblazing firm specializing in helping high net worth individuals and families navigate the investment migration space. Katie, the Russian Anania, Plan B's founder, and I've met her before. She's a lovely woman. I met her at BitBlock Boom the one time that I was actually able to go to a Bitcoin conference in Dallas. Katie it's like one of those girls you just kind of fall in love with immediately because she's nice and she's funny and she's really, really smart. And she was so smart that she is the one that created Plan B. And if you hadn't heard about Plan B, it was a big, big deal a couple of years ago before Nostr when I was still on Twitter, right? And essentially, Plan B just allows you to get multiple passports so that you can have citizenship in different regions of the world in case shit goes south in whatever region you happen to be living in. But she is set. Katie the Russian is set to join Citizen X as the chief marketing officer, bringing along her over 50,000 followers on X and experienced team renowned for bold client-centric solutions. Plan B Passport's core ethos, quote, limit your dependency on any one particular state by obtaining a second passport, end quote. It resonates seamlessly with Citizen X's commitment to helping clients diversify their passport portfolios with privacy-focused technologies and concierge service. Together, they will offer over 25 citizenship and residency programs around the world, from Caribbean citizenship by investment programs to European golden visas and beyond, giving clients unparalleled control over their money, choices, and destiny. Quote, I started Plan B Passport to help my friends on Twitter get their Plan B passports, said Ananya. Quote, now, with the scale and technology behind Citizen X, we're the loudest, most trusted voice in this game and will bring it far beyond my Twitter following. Our clients get more options, faster service, and the same rebel spirit amplified. End quote. Citizen X gains Plan B's expert team, which consists of digital marketers, world-class operators, and citizenship specialists, and Plan B's Bitcoin-friendly approach. The merge elevates CitizenX.com into a new category of citizenship solutions backed by Plan B's ancestry-based citizenship programs and exciting, quote, soon-to-be-revealed Bitcoin options. Quote, Katie and Plan B bring a fearless energy that we admire, said Alex Rakuso, CEO of Citizen X. Quote, their dominance in the Bitcoin space and industry expertise supercharge our vision. Together, we're creating new ways for countries to fundraise directly from citizens and, more importantly, helping more people secure their freedom. For more information, visit citizen.x or contact Katie at citizenx.com. Katie, congratulations, man. You got bought out. And I hope that Citizen X doesn't rug pull the idea of using Bitcoin. Because Citizen X, sort of like the same thing that Plan B was or is, but they didn't accept Bitcoin. Because Katie's vision for multiple passports in citizenships, around the world had nothing to do with like her being first to the market. She was not. This shit is called flag theory. If you want to get into it, you just go search up citizenship, flag, and theory in Google, and you'll understand more than you need to know about what the hell flag theory actually is. She's not the first one to come up with the idea, but she was the first one to use Bitcoin with it. And now Citizen X, which is one of the largest players in the game before Katie started doing what she was doing, now they're going to integrate the Bitcoin part of that into what they've already been doing. It's a mind virus, this thing. Bitcoin, it's like water. It just flows through every crack. It gets into every cranny. And once it's there, it just doesn't leave. Once the mind virus gets in your head and you start really understanding at the same time what the hell's been done to us as a citizenry of the world, you don't even want that water to leave. You never want to be without Bitcoin. And you probably never want to be without a second passport, even though, well, I do not have a second passport myself. I guess I should, in case shit goes south here. But in case shit goes south here, I kind of just want to end up in Southwest Colorado, because honestly, clearing out mountains is not going to be an authoritarian's first mode of how they're going to operate. They're going to go for the big cities, right? If they're going to get bombed, they're not going to bomb Southwest Colorado. They're going to bomb Chicago. If armies are going to march to put people in internment camps, and I'm not saying that any of this shit is going to happen. I'm just saying the worst case scenario, the mountains if you want to go pull people out of mountains, that is a waste of your time, because most of the people, which is what you're probably after, and most of their property, they're not in the mountains. They're in the plains, man. They're on the coasts. They're easy pickings. The guys in the mountains, I guarantee this is just leave us the fuck alone. And that's where you mount your Red Dawn resistance at. If you've ever seen Red Dawn, you know what I'm talking about. If you don't, you don't. Either way, I will see you on the other side. This has been Bitcoin and I'm your host, David Bennett. I hope you enjoyed today's episode and hope to see you again real soon. Have a great day.